What if the very fabric of our reality, the steady march of time, the unwavering certainty of space, could suddenly fray? What if, in a blink, everything you knew about existence was challenged, not by some grand cosmic event, but by a whisper in the desert, a moment of profound, inexplicable strangeness? This is a story about such a whisper, a tale of a soldier, a desert night, and the universe's startling capacity to defy every expectation we hold dear. It's a journey into the unknown, a testament to the courage it takes to face what cannot be explained, and an invitation to consider the vast, unexplored territories of possibility that lie just beyond our perception. Our story begins in 2011, amidst the stark, unforgiving beauty of Afghanistan. Picture the scene: a moonless night, the air thick with dust, and the distant thrum of unseen life. Private First Class Miles Corbin, a young man with a quiet strength and an unwavering sense of duty, was on a routine night patrol with his squad. The mission was clear, the terrain familiar, the rhythm of their steps a comforting, monotonous beat against the silence. And then, in an instant, it wasn't. One moment, Miles was there, a shadow among shadows, moving with practiced stealth. The next, he was gone. Not a sound, not a struggle, just an absence. His comrades, seasoned soldiers, all swept the immediate vicinity, their radios crackling with urgent queries, their hearts pounding with a primal fear. 7 minutes. That's how long Private First Class Miles Corbin vanished from the face of the earth, or at least, from their observable corner of it. 7 minutes of frantic searching, of growing dread, of the chilling realization that a man had simply ceased to be. But then, just as despair began to settle in, a faint signal, a thermal signature on a distant scope. Miles was found, not in a crevice, not behind a rock, but a staggering 12 miles east of their original position. 12 miles in 7 minutes. The sheer impossibility of it hung in the night air, cold and sharp as a razor's edge. Even if he'd been running at Olympic speeds, even if he'd possessed superhuman endurance, such a distance was utterly, unequivocally beyond the realm of human capability. The questions piled up, each one heavier than the last. There were no signs of vehicle movement in the sand, no telltale tracks of a Humvee or an ATV. The sky had been clear, no helicopters reported in the area, and most baffling of all, there were no footprints, no disturbed earth to suggest he had run, crawled, or been dragged those impossible miles. It was as if he had simply been lifted, transported, and set down again, like a misplaced chess piece on a colossal board. When his squad finally reached him, their relief was quickly overshadowed by a new wave of bewilderment. Miles wasn't injured. He wasn't exhausted, gasping for breath, or covered in the grime of a desperate dash across the desert. He stood there, seemingly unharmed, albeit with a strange, distant look in his eyes. Yet, a closer inspection revealed anomalies that deepened the mystery. His heart rate was significantly elevated, a rapid drumbeat against his ribs, not from exertion, but from something else entirely. And his watch, that simple, practical instrument of military precision, was 46 minutes ahead of everyone else's. 46 minutes. In those 7 minutes he was gone. His personal timekeeping device had leaped forward, mocking the shared reality of his comrades. Miles's account, delivered in a quiet, almost disbelieving tone, only served to amplify the enigma. He recounted being in a place that looked uncannily like the desert they knew, yet felt profoundly wrong. The sand, the rocks, the distant horizon, all identical, but the air was still, devoid of the familiar desert wind that constantly sculpted the dunes. The stars above, usually a vibrant, shifting tapestry, were frozen, unmoving, like diamonds embedded in an unyielding canvas. His radio, a lifeline in that desolate landscape, was dead, silent. No matter how he tried to coax it back to life, he remembered walking, for what felt like hours, a desperate, endless trek through an eerily silent, unresponding world. He walked, driven by an instinct to find his way back, to break free from that unsettling stillness. Yet, when he was found, when he looked at his watch, it confirmed what his squad already knew. Only 7 minutes had passed. 7 minutes of objective time, against what his mind and body insisted was an eternity. The disconnect was jarring, a direct assault on the fundamental principles of cause and effect, of linear progression. How could ours feel like minutes? How could his perception of reality be so drastically, terrifyingly warped? The military, ever practical, ever seeking to classify and contain, initially struggled. But the truth, the raw, unvarnished truth of what had happened, was simply too extraordinary to fit into any existing framework. Miles underwent extensive medical analysis. Doctors, baffled by his story, ran every test imaginable. And that's when the final, most unsettling piece of the puzzle emerged. The medical reports, meticulously compiled and reviewed by specialists, confirmed something truly astonishing. Miles Corbin's body, in those 7 objective minutes he was missing, had aged by nearly an hour. Not just his watch, not just his perception, but his actual cellular aging. The very biological clock within him had accelerated. The universe, it seemed, had just whispered a secret far grander and more terrifying than any of them could comprehend. The universe, it seemed, had just whispered a secret far grander and more terrifying than any of them could comprehend. This was the reality that Private First Class Daniel Hale, the soldier at the heart of this impossible enigma, now carried within him. His name, initially held in confidential military reports as a pseudonym, Miles Corbin, to protect his identity. And the classified nature of the event was, in truth, Daniel Hale. And what happened to Daniel was not just a medical anomaly. It was a geographical impossibility, a direct challenge to the very fabric of space itself. For those 7 objective minutes, Daniel was gone. The search for him had been frantic, desperate. His patrol unit, disoriented and alarmed by a sudden vanishing act, had immediately initiated search protocols. Flare after flare soared into the oppressive Afghan night, illuminating the desolate landscape in stark, fleeting bursts of light. Their shouts echoed, swallowed by the vast, indifferent desert. When the search finally located him, it wasn't through any logical deduction or tracking. He simply appeared 12 miles east of his original position. 12 miles in 7 minutes. Consider the sheer, audacious impossibility of that distance. To cover 12 miles in 7 minutes would require a speed of roughly 100 miles per hour. A human being, on foot, cannot achieve this. Not even a world-class sprinter can maintain such a pace for more than a few seconds, let alone cover such a vast expanse. The terrain was rugged, uneven, treacherous in the dark. There were no roads, no discernible paths for a vehicle to traverse silently and without leaving a trace. No tire tracks scarred the sand. No dust plumes had been observed. No engine sounds heard. The vast, open sky had been monitored for any unusual air traffic. No helicopters, no drones, nothing that could have deposited him so far away in such an impossibly short span of time. And perhaps, most baffling of all, there were no footprints leading to or from where he was found. It was as if Daniel had simply been lifted, folded, and placed, or rather, unfolded asterisk, into a new location. The desert had swallowed him whole, only to spit him out again, miles away, without a single whisper of how. When his squad finally reached him, Daniel was standing, seemingly unharmed. There were no visible injuries, no signs of exhaustion despite the impossible journey his body had supposedly undertaken. He wasn't gasping for breath, wasn't collapsed in a heap. Yet, there was an unmistakable intensity in his eyes, a wild, almost frantic energy that belied his calm posture. His heart rate, when checked, was significantly elevated, a drumbeat of pure adrenaline and something far more profound, something akin to existential terror. And then there was his watch, that small, ordinary timepiece, now a harbinger of the extraordinary. It was exactly 46 minutes ahead of everyone else's. A physical manifestation of the time dilation his body had already confirmed. Daniel's immediate recounting of his experience was fragmented at first, a torrent of desperate, disbelieving words. He spoke of being in a place that looked identical to the Afghan desert they knew, yet felt profoundly, terrifyingly wrong. The sand, the rocks, the distant horizon, all mirrored their reality with unsettling precision. But the very air was still, devoid of the familiar desert wind that constantly sculpted the dunes, carrying the scent of dust and heat. The stars above, usually a vibrant, shifting tapestry in the unpolluted night sky, were frozen, unmoving, like diamonds embedded in an unyielding, black canvas. His radio, that indispensable lifeline in such a desolate landscape, was dead, silent, no matter how he tried to coax it back to life. He remembered walking, for what felt like hours, a desperate, endless trek through an eerily silent, unresponding world. He walked, driven by an instinct to find his way back, to break free from that unsettling stillness, that profound absence of life and movement. The psychological toll of those hours was immense. Imagine walking for what your mind and body perceive as an eternity, only to be told that a mere 7 minutes have passed. The disconnect was a brutal assault on the fundamental principles of cause and effect, of linear progression. How could ours feel like minutes? How could his perception of reality be so drastically, terrifyingly warped? And how could his very cells have aged nearly an hour in that fleeting objective time? The military, ever practical, ever seeking to classify and contain, initially struggled. They tried to fit it into existing frameworks, to rationalize the irrational. Ultimately, the incident was officially classified as temporary disorientation due to environmental factors, a sterile, inadequate label for an event that defied every known law of physics and biology. But behind the official reports, the truth lingered, a chilling whisper no one dared to speak aloud. Daniel's unit was never sent back to that specific area, a silent, unofficial acknowledgement of the danger that lingered there, and Daniel himself, profoundly changed by his journey to a place beyond comprehension, requested immediate discharge. He couldn't unsee what he had seen, couldn't unfeel what he had felt. He carried the burden of a secret that shattered the ordinary world. But Daniel Hale, despite the trauma, found a strange kind of conviction. He believes that place still exists, that identical, yet wrong desert with its frozen stars and silent winds. He believes it's not just a momentary hallucination or a trick of the mind. He believes it's a real place, a tear in the fabric of reality, and that sometimes, just sometimes, it allows people to return. He lives with the knowledge that the world is far stranger than we imagine, and that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. Daniel Hale carries that knowledge not as a burden, but as a silent, profound truth. He requested immediate discharge, not out of cowardice, but out of an overwhelming realization that his old world, his old understanding of reality, had been irrevocably shattered. How could he return to the mundane, to the predictable, when he had walked 4 hours in a place where time itself was a lie, where stars stood frozen in an alien sky? His life, after the military, was, understandably, different. He sought out quiet, away from the clamor of a world that demanded linear logic and quantifiable facts. He didn't speak much about his experience, not in detail, not to those who hadn't been there. How could he? How do you explain to someone that your body aged an hour and 7 minutes, that you traveled 12 miles without moving, that you walked for what felt like an eternity through a silent, unmoving desert that was both identical to Afghanistan and profoundly wrong? Most people, he knew, would classify it as PTSD, a vivid hallucination born of combat stress. And perhaps, in a way, it was easier to let them believe that. But Daniel knew better. He carried the indelible mark of that other place, etched not just into his memory, but into the very cells of his being. He found solace in nature, in the vast, open spaces of deserts and mountains, places where the silence wasn't unsettling but comforting. He watched the stars, now with a deeper appreciation for their relentless, predictable dance across the night sky, a stark contrast to the motionless beacons of his terrifying journey. He felt the wind, a tangible reminder of movement, of life, of a world that still obeyed its own rules. His radio, once a lifeline, now merely a device, a stark reminder of its uselessness in that other realm. What Daniel came to understand, over years of quiet contemplation, was that his experience, while terrifying, was also a profound gift. It was a glimpse behind the curtain, a whisper of the infinite possibilities that lie beyond our current comprehension. It forced him to question everything he thought he knew about existence, about time, about space, and ultimately, about himself. He had faced the absolute unknown, not just as an abstract concept, but as a tangible, terrifying reality. And he had returned. He came to believe that the place wasn't necessarily evil or malevolent. It was simply different. An intersection, perhaps. A thin spot in the fabric of reality where the rules we hold so dear simply do want to apply. And his conviction that it sometimes allows people to return wasn't a desperate hope for another visit, but a quiet understanding that the universe is far more complex, far more mysterious, and far more interconnected than we dare to imagine. It's a reminder that there are dimensions of experience, layers of reality, that lie just beyond our perception, waiting to be stumbled upon. This perspective, born from an impossible event, gave Daniel a unique lens through which to view the world. He saw the beauty in the ordinary, knowing how fragile and precious our familiar reality truly is. He approached life with a quiet wonder, always open to the unexpected, always willing to consider that there might be more to a situation than meets the eye. He learned patience. Having experienced time in its most distorted form, he learned resilience, having walked 4 hours through a timeless void. His story, though officially buried under layers of bureaucratic classification, serves as a profound metaphor for our own lives. We may never disappear for 7 minutes into an alternate desert, but we all, at some point, encounter moments that challenge our understanding, that stretch the limits of our beliefs. These can be personal tragedies, unexpected triumphs, or sudden, inexplicable shifts in our perception of the world. They are our thin spots, our own doors that open to something beyond our current grasp. How do we respond to these moments? Do we shut them down, rationalize them away, or dismiss them as anomalies? Or do we, like Daniel Hale, allow them to expand our consciousness, to reshape our understanding, and to inspire us to look deeper, to question more, to live with a greater sense of wonder? Daniel's journey reminds us that clinging rigidly to what we think we know can blind us to the vastness of what is. Sometimes, the most profound growth comes not from finding answers, but from embracing the questions. It comes from having the courage to acknowledge that some phenomena simply defy explanation, and that in that very defiance lies a powerful truth. The universe is infinitely more mysterious and magnificent than our current science can encompass. His experience taught him that time isn't always linear, that space isn't always fixed, and that our perception of reality is just one sliver of an unimaginably vast whole. And in that understanding, there is a strange, liberating freedom. It frees us from the constraints of rigid thinking, allowing us to dream bigger, to imagine possibilities beyond the mundane, and to approach life with a renewed sense of curiosity and awe. So, the next time you encounter something inexplicable, something that makes the hairs on your arm stand up, something that just feels wrong, yet undeniably real, remember Daniel Hale. Remember the soldier who walked 4 hours and 7 minutes, whose body aged in a blink, and whose world was forever changed by a doorway in the desert. Perhaps it's not an anomaly to be feared, but an invitation to expand your own understanding, to open your own mind to the incredible, unfathomable depths of existence. For in those moments, in those thin spots, we are offered a glimpse of the extraordinary, a chance to grow beyond our perceived limits and to discover the boundless wonder that lies just beyond the edges of our known world. And sometimes, those doors, once opened, can never truly be closed, forever inviting us to explore the endless mysteries of the universe and of ourselves.